Mm-hmm.
I feel like I have to figure out. Hey, did you enjoy your last trip to Australia? You didn't go on a trip to Australia? Well, you should. And I can help you do it. Our next guest has written a book on Australia and Australian animals. You will be there. My name is Vin Dacquino. Our guest is Jeanne Rogers. Jeanne, oh man, I loved your book.
Thank you.
Let's talk writing.
Thank you.
Tell me about the book, The Sword of Demelza.
It's a fantasy for middle graders. It's targeted at about 7 to 12-year-olds. And the main aim of the book is not just to entertain, it's to educate youngsters about some of the unusual animals that live in Australia.
Well, what you have actually done, you take real animals and you sort of make them into like cartoons. You create these animals into real characters.
Right.
And we have some drawings here to help us go to these characters. So let's look at one.
Okay.
This is Numbat,
That's a numbat.
right? We'll take this Numbat, and what part in the book does this Numbat play?
This numbat is a major character in the book. His name is Alden, and he's a sorcerer. He's sort of a god. He's what they call the guardian of the forest. And he looks over all the creatures in the forest and helps them to find their way. He doesn't really move things. He would rather the creatures themselves solve their own problems, but he does watch over them.
So this is what fascinates me. How do you decide what character goes into what animal?
Well, I did a lot of research on the animals in Australia before I even started writing. I'm fascinated with the animals of Australia. And that particular animal in real life is a very benign animal. As a matter of fact, a person could actually come up to it and pick it up. It's not mean, it won't bite. They're just really sweet. So I kind of took that and ran with it. There are some other creatures that are not so wonderful, and they have other parts in the book.
All right, here's another thing that fascinates me. You have all these wonderful Australian animals. Are you Australian?
No. No.
Tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, matter of fact, everybody thinks I'm from Australia because of what I've written, but no, I'm not. I'm actually from the Bronx.
Same thing.
I was born in, kind of, sort of. I was born in the Bronx and raised in New Jersey. Right now, I consider myself a writer, and I love being able to say that. I spent 25 years in corporate America, and it feels good to be doing something that's
Now, when you
really
say
creative.
corporate America,
Yeah.
well, I mean, what, you sat behind a desk?
That's correct.
Whoa.
I sat behind a desk for 25 years. What I actually did was file international patents for a major pharmaceutical company. I filed patents all over the world.
Is that a far cry
from this.
Australian animals?
It sure is.
So while you were sitting at that desk, all these little animals were crawling around in your
were.
imagination.
Absolutely.
And did you know a long time ago that you were someday going to finally reach this dream?
Well, I guess I would have to blame a lot of it on my dad. My dad was a big reader, and he introduced me to sci-fi and fantasy when I was quite young. As a matter of fact, the first sci-fi books that I read were Isaac Asimov's Foundation trilogy, which is, I think probably everybody would recognize, this is the I, Robot, Will Smith's I, Robot. Fabulous, fabulous science fiction he wrote. But from there I went to Tolkien. I also went to Brian Jacques, Brian Jacques is probably a major inspiration for my books. He wrote the Redwall series.
I loved
that.
it.
Yeah.
You know what I used to do? I had to drive about an hour and a half to work every day.
Yeah.
I would get the CDs of the books and play them.
Yeah.
I went through the whole Redwall series.
They're wonderful.
I was so there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so exciting. When I first started reading your book, it was like revisiting.
Yeah.
And it was so wonderful to see
That's
these characters.
that's a wonderful compliment.
Well,
That's probably
he was
that's a
one of my
wonderful
favorites, so
compliment.
that
Thank
coming
you.
from me, it really is a compliment
Thank
because
you.
I considered him way
Way
up
up
on
there.
the top.
Yeah, he is.
Because he captivated me.
Yeah.
Captivated me. That was not my genre.
Yeah.
It was far from my genre. And I mean, I'm more a realistic fiction kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not realistic fiction, but it became realistic. Their mission was my mission.
Yes.
And that's what I loved about your book. This is a story of a mission.
Right.
And there's a lot of wonderful little lessons. These little puggles. I have to show you these puggles. These are puggles. They're echidna.
They're echidna babies.
So tell me a little bit about Amber and Ackley.
Amber and Ackley are little puggles. They're babies, baby echidnas, and what they do is they follow around two kawaris. And kawaris are another marsupial that lives in Australia only. And they make a nuisance of themselves, basically, because they follow the other kawaris. But they're very, very sweet and
they become a
lovable.
very important part of this book.
Absolutely become a very important part.
Yeah, so speaking of a very important part of this book, before I ask you to actually tell me what the basic storyline of this book is, I want to show you one more character because I love him for his evilness. So let's look at this. And this is the water dragon lizard.
Right.
Tell me about the water dragon lizard.
Water dragon lizard is an animal that's found all throughout Indonesia. It is not endangered. He, in the book, is an evil character. He just loves going around creating havoc. He attacks all the peaceful creatures of the countryside, and he's just mean.
But now, why? A water dragon lizard is not really that big or that dangerous, but he sure is dangerous in his book.
Well, you know what? They look really ugly.
Yeah. Can we, I'm going to risk getting in trouble here. Can we see what a real dragon lizard looks like? If we look at this picture right here, can we focus? There you go. They are pretty ugly.
They're pretty ugly.
And they're pretty scary looking. If you
Right.
could imagine this big enough, it looks like some kind of prehistoric
They
animal.
look like a dinosaur, and
Yeah.
they look like they're armored. So he's
Yeah.
ready. He's ready for anything.
Yeah. So, okay. So now, talk to me about this storyline. What is this book about?
The book is about three major characters.
Okay.
One is a fox, and the two others are the quarries that I spoke of before. And they each have their own mission. The one wants to go. He's out for revenge. The fox is out for revenge.
Now, the fox has been wronged.
Yes, he's lost his mother and father.
Okay.
Okay, and his adoptive father also was killed, and he was killed by these water dragons, by the evil
So
dragons.
he's after these water dragons.
He's
and he's
after-
only a child, right? I mean,
He's, yes, you would say maybe a 12-year-old in our terms of
Right.
age. But he's still determined that he's going to go out and seek revenge. The Kawaris, on the other hand, have a whole nother mission because their mother's been bitten by a brown snake, which is poisonous. And that snake has caused such trouble for them that what they need to do,
and that snake's evil, too.
the snake is evil too. That snake has caused such trouble, what they need to do is go out and find ingredients for a potion to make their mother well. So these two goals collide. They come together. The fox with his goal of revenge, the two Kawaris with their goal to make their mother
And it
well.
all combines to the big picture.
To the big
And
picture.
they're going to solve this big mission.
Right. What they find out when they're going to get their goals, to complete their goals, they find out there is an evil, evil king who is wielding a powerful sword.
And what kind of animal is the evil king?
The evil king is a fox.
Aha.
Yes. And fox are not, they are not natural to Australia.
So how did you stick this fox into Australia?
Well, fox are there now, and they're not supposed to be.
They're just not...
They're not indigenous, to
Okay.
Australia. And fox, in mythology and storylines, are sly, sort of can be a little bit evil and underhanded. So I figured they were a good fit for this.
Sly, wily fox.
It's a good fit for this particular character.
Yeah. So, okay, so what's happened is that there's evil history, and it has to be righted. And these little puggles, become kind of heroes.
They do.
In the book.
They do. Actually, what happens is they follow the quarries into the forest, and they should not have. And they get picked up by the evil dragons. And now the mission is totally changed. We are no longer can think about the mother, or we can no longer think about the fact that we've lost parents. The bigger goal is now we have to stop this evil
We have
fox.
to figure out how to get into this castle, and there's little dungeons that they have to go through. And,
right.
A lot of adventure. And I love the way you leave me hanging at the ends of chapters, where I can't say I'll take a break here, because it makes me nuts. I couldn't.
Yeah.
And I found myself reading right through this book. Lot to see, lot to read about, but a lot of lessons.
Right.
About brother and sister.
Right.
The closeness.
Yep.
About being who you are.
Right.
One of them is constantly saying, "That's not who I am," and he wants to be. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, some of the moral lessons that I put in there, I didn't want to drop them like, bricks in a path.
Right.
I wanted the kids to be able to pick them up. One of the major things that I wanted to bring through is that you have to be dedicated to a cause. And because you're small or because you're young, it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
If you are really dedicated and you want to accomplish something, you can do it.
It's okay to be different.
It's okay to be different.
But what you do with that difference will make all the difference in the world.
Exactly.
And I loved that message in your book.
Yeah.
I also loved the fact that it doesn't matter what size you are.
Right.
It's what size you make yourself.
Self-feel, right.
And these animals, I was just absolutely amazed at how you took these little animals and you made them something bigger, stronger, better.
Yeah.
And you used their differences to make them special.
Yes.
Speaking of lessons, your book is being used by teachers.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, about 4 years ago, before I published the book, I started a blog. And the blog was going to be dedicated to unusual animals around the world. One of my passions is to teach children about endangered animals and the fact that human encroachment is creating part of their threat. And so the blog, which I update once a week, is I introduce another animal and explain to the children on their level about the animal, where it lives, what its problem is. And several classrooms are now using it as a teaching tool, and it's wonderful. The kids will email me back. They give me suggestions.
Yeah.
They talk to me. It's probably the greatest thing that's coming out of my writing.
I love that part of what you do, because you have something that I don't have, and that's technology savvy. You know how to get out there and talk to a large audience through blogging, through emails, and a frustrating thing for me is I am an entertainer. The show, standing on a stage, going to talk to audiences, I live for that. The books make me crazy because you sit and read my book, I can't see your face. Yeah. I can't hear your comments. And I don't know what they're saying. Even the show sometimes makes me crazy because we don't have a real audience here. The real audience is out there somewhere.
Right.
And I don't know if they like it or don't like it.
Right.
And reading faces is, that's something that a writer has to do. He has to know what characters think all the time.
Right.
Now, you have an opportunity to actually get feedback from those children and teachers.
Right.
Teachers are talking back to you. And are you doing things because of what you're hearing them say?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, before I go any further, I'd like to say a big hello to Mrs. Long's third grade class in Florida, because they really have made a difference.
Third grade Floridians. Hello.
And there are several other classrooms down there too that are shown, but Mrs. Long's class, thank you for everything, because they've inspired me. The kids really do get back to me. One of the teachers said to me this week, we're going to be studying desert animals. So I made it a point this week to blog about the Gila monster, which is the largest lizard here in the U.S. It lives in the Southwest, in Arizona specifically, and it is endangered. Again, it's endangered because of encroachment. So I sent that out for them specifically this week. It went out yesterday, and I'm excited to hear back from them.
Yeah, to hear what their reaction is
is.
going to be.
Yeah.
So I know for my books, I do an awful lot of research. When and where do you do this research?
I do it all at home. Before I got to Australia, it took me years to study all these animals, specifically the marsupials. There are so many different marsupials in Australia, and most of them are endangered as well. I haven't put the ordinary characters in. There's no koalas yet. There's no kangaroos. Both of those, the koalas is threatened but not endangered. Kangaroo in Australia are like deer.
Yeah,
Here
they're
in the United
everywhere,
States.
right?
They're everywhere.
Wow.
So I did research a lot, but then finally this past year I was able to get to Australia.
It's funny how some animals, for some people, are so common and others are not. That's why it's so important for writers to capture that. I remember when I first came to this area from upstate, and I was going to college, and to make extra money, I worked in the guard booth at the entrance to the college.
Huh.
And while I was standing there, a skunk walked by, and I freaked. I was like, oh my God, it had to escape from a zoo. I just could not fathom the fact that skunks walked loose along the street. It was like I'd never seen that in my life.
Right.
And it was like I called Utica, I said, Ma, skunks walk around here. She said, the smelly skunks? I said, yes. They just walk around like they own the place. And it just fascinated me.
Yeah.
And it also made me think how things are so common to some people and not common to others. For example, Australian animals.
Right.
We have no idea.
No.
Imagine if one of these water dragons sitting on the coffee table in the living room, we'd freak.
Yeah.
So you're bringing things to us that would not be here ordinarily.
Exactly.
That's what the world of books can do.
It's all about, right.
And your father gave you a huge gift by helping you to understand that books are a portal into the could be.
Could be. Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do with introducing these animals was teach them about it. So I didn't just stop with a story. The story is entertaining.
So it's not just a story.
It's not just a story.
There's a story behind the story.
Right. There's education there. As a matter of fact, in the book itself, at the back, there's a glossary. And there's not just a list of animals, but there's a list of all the flora and fauna that I mentioned within the book. It's not just animals. There's a lot that's in the book that probably youngsters here in the U.S. have never heard of before.
Yeah. So now I'm interested in the when and where. Do you sit at the kitchen table to write? When and where do you write?
Well, I had a doctor tell me that I had adult ADD.
Oh, God.
Because what I do
you
is
and me both.
I follow the sun. I'll move the computer to the dining room table if the sun is bright there, or then I'll go to the sofa if it's more comfortable there, and maybe I'll get to the desk sometime, but I tend to move around quite a bit.
Are you a night writer, a day writer?
Actually, no.
Really?
5 o'clock in the morning, it's not unusual for me to be sitting at the keyboard.
So you get a good night's sleep before you write.
Yeah, it's quiet then. I have a very, very busy household, so I try to find some time where there's no interference, because you can't. You just can't.
No.
Once the muse strikes, if you don't listen, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So
and the procrastinator, you always know. I mean, there's always something I should be doing.
Exactly.
I spent my whole life that way. I never can do something and say, this is what I should be doing. Mm-hmm. It's also what I should be doing.
Right.
I should be doing 10 other things too. And I find myself going off. You say ADD, I'm ADHD. I'm so hyperactive, I just go in 80 directions at once. I'm always doing something.
Right.
I retired I rehired. I didn't retire. I'm just doing other things.
Yeah.
So, are you able to sit there and focus and get it done?
Absolutely.
Do you do a chapter, or do you do like, I'm going to write from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m.?
No, I don't do that at all. No, once again, when the muse strikes, that's when
Yeah.
I make sure that I'm sitting at the
Interesting.
keyboard. I was very inspired this past holiday season when I was told that the book won an award.
Yeah, let's
From
talk about the
Yeah.
award. You are the recipient of the Writer's Digest Self-Published Ebook Award.
Right.
Honorable mention. That's
That's
big
great.
time.
It's a great
That's
thing.
huge.
Yes, it's huge.
Huge.
Yeah. Writer's Digest is a preeminent publication for writers, and I can't
Yeah.
tell you how.
I know, it's a Bible.
Yeah, I was thrilled to learn that I
Yeah.
had won this award. So we're going to top that this coming year. We're going to do the
I'm
second
sure.
book's going to come out, and we're going to do even better.
Oh, did you just say second book?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Let's talk about it. What's coming?
The second book, I have the second book on paper. It's about 50% done.
Wow.
The third book is percolating, but the second book is going to be really cool because what it does is it will explain to readers how the sword was created. So we're kind of going to go back a little bit in time and revisit some of these characters. Some of the readers will see some of the characters again, but there'll be new characters
So will
also.
the Puggles be back?
The Puggles won't be back.
Oh, man.
No, sorry, Puggles aren't back. But we do have Tasmanian devils in
good,
this one,
good.
so
Oh, wow.
it's going to be exciting. It's going to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
exciting.
sounds it.
Yeah.
Now, in addition to writing,
Mm-hmm.
I admire your desire to reach out to other writers.
Right.
And you have done that
Right.
big time.
Right.
I know that you do writers' workshops. I was in one of them
Right.
a couple weeks ago.
Right.
I came to see what goes on, and I was thrilled.
Right.
You know, I've been involved in writers' workshops forever. I run them every week because I truly believe in writers helping writers.
Right.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all
It's
about.
the give back. Writing is such a wonderful inner experience that we have to bring other people there. We have to show them what it's like to go inside and come out
Right.
with something special.
Exactly.
And you do that. Talk to me a little bit about how you reach out to other writers.
One of the things that I do is I support indie writers, independent authors who are self-published, are really
Indie writers.
Right.
So independent writers.
Indep-
So now tell us more.
indie writers. There's all sorts of terms at this point in
Yep.
time, but
Yep.
I prefer the term independently published authors.
Okay.
Okay, these are people who would not probably be published traditionally, but are very, very on getting themselves into the public. And those writers need support. I'm one myself, so obviously I'm going to support them in any way I can. What I do is at this point, I'm editing for those independent writers.
So you do editing.
Yes, I do editing, and also too, I will read independently published books by those writers, write reviews on them, and also give them some tips after I've written their books. I'm in the process of doing 2 at the current time for independent authors that have published themselves.
There was a time when self-publishing was taboo.
Right.
Where people said,
Right.
"Oh, no, don't do that. That's vanity press,
Right.
and that's just to help your ego." Those days are gone.
They are
It's
gone.
a whole new world, isn't it?
Absolutely.
How has it changed?
I think that the big change is that if you're a good writer, you can get yourself out there.
Yeah.
I think that people who are thinking about the difference between traditional and independent self-publishing, the big difference is that no longer will your traditional publisher give you all the help that you need to get your book out there.
Yeah.
You're going to be a part of the process.
Yeah.
You're going to be in charge of your marketing. So even though you're going to have a traditional publisher, you still must have a very, very active role in that marketing. If you're self-publishing, you're going to do the same thing as well.
I know you work closely with Jeanne
Right.
who has been a big influence for indie writers.
Correct.
And she used the term, and you used the term that I love, gatekeepers.
Right.
Traditional publishers have been gatekeepers for years. Now, I'm not going to put traditional publishers down,
No.
because traditional publishers have contributed
Right.
to the world of reading and writing. And they've helped us get wonderful books out there.
Right.
But there are a lot of wonderful books that never got past the
That's
gate.
right. That's right.
And it's time to get them past.
Right.
And our word to writers has got to be, don't be intimidated.
Right. Be tenacious.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Be tenacious. Don't you
Yep.
give up.
Yep.
If it's your dream, make your dream come
Right.
true.
Keep writing.
Fight for your right. There's a little saying that says readers are leaders. I said, yep, and writers are fighters.
Writers.
You have to fight
Yeah.
for what you want to say.
Right.
It's not enough to think you are a writer. You must be a writer.
Right.
And that takes in a lot of other things than sitting with a pencil in your hand
Exactly.
or a laptop.
Exactly.
Writing and rewriting and revising and getting your book out there and not allowing rejection to knock you down.
Exactly.
You have to get up and fight again.
Right.
It has been a pleasure to talk with you today, and I know that you have final words you'd love to say to the audience. What are those, Jeanne?
I think that for my readers, for my youngsters out there, my major message is keep reading, because you'll learn from what you're reading. And for all those people who are writing and are trying to make a mark, don't give up. Keep going. Keep writing.
And what should they go to writers' workshops? Are they useful?
Absolutely. Conferences, writers' workshops, make sure that
Conferences and workshops.
workshops, and also social media. You'll be surprised how many wonderful people and other writers you will meet in
What about
social
book
media.
shows? And you know these.
The BEA is absolutely a must.
And the BEA is
is the Book Expo America, which takes place in the Javits Center in New York City.
And you go and see all these publishers, and you see all these new
Absolutely.
books that are coming out, and
Yep.
what people are trending right now.
Exactly. This is really a must. You have to get yourself out, put yourself out there. It's really difficult to do. I mean, I'm a great example.
Yeah.
I'm not one to put myself out there. I'm a little fearful, but you have to. You have to.
And
you
you can do that on the computer too.
You can do that on the
You're
computer.
all over the computer.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to.
Speaking of that, we have been running your website and your name and the books. Jeanne Rogers has a lot to teach you. You need to pay attention. You also need to read her books. You'll love it. You'll love it. It's not a book, it's an adventure. Jeanne, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for joining us. It has been our pleasure today to bring you the world of books, the world of Jeanne Rogers. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks
Jeanne.
very much. Thank you, Ann.
Great job.